With the hatchback body style becoming more and more accepted here in the States, there are no shortage of choices out there if you're in the market for this type of vehicle. This week, Kia has sent me over their latest entry. Let's take an in-depth look at the 2017 Kia Forte5 SX. If you look at Kia's track record for offering a compact car in the States, the company hasn't always been the most consistent. In the past, their compact cars have always been pretty good values, but they've always been on the slightly lower end of the gotta have it factor when you look at competitors like the Honda Civic or Mazda 3 or Volkswagen Golf. That kind of changed when Kia introduced the second generation Forte back in 2013. The original one back in 2009 replaced the pretty much unloved Kia Spectra that was really reserved for a lot of rental fleets. Now you can see for 2017, Kia's actually made some pretty heavy updates to the Forte lineup, which I showed you guys a sedan version a few months ago, a new Sedan S, which is kind of like a sportier trim. However, it didn't really have the powertrain I want. This particular one that I have has the powertrain that I prefer. This is the Forte5. When you see a 5, it designates that this is the 5-door hatch model SX trim, which means it comes equipped with the 1.6 liter GDI turbocharged 4-cylinder that I loved in the Hyundai Elantra Sport in the Kia Soul Turbo. Now you can see for 2017, Kia updated the front end slightly. You have new headlights, a new grille design, a new front fascia, new wheel designs, and a slightly updated rear end. The front of my tester, because it's an SX model, has xenon headlights, no daytime running lights, no LED or actual, regular daytime running lights, which surprised me a little bit. Most cars today come with daytime running lights, so I'm imagining Kia will probably add that when they actually redesign the Forte in the next couple of years. Now, speaking of the trims, you can take the Forte5 model between 3 of them, starting at the base LX, EX, and then SX is the top of the line. Like my tester, it rides on these very nice looking 18-inch wheels, which do fill out the wheel wells nicely. The lower trims will have like a 17 or a 16-inch wheel design. You can see the overall proportions of the Forte5 are certainly handsome. I especially like this deep ocean blue pearl exterior color. You can distinguish the SX again from the slightly orangish accents in the lower part of the front bumper, which certainly gives it a more distinctive look. It's kind of going in line with what Kia is doing on the Kia Soul Turbo with the orange reddish accents to kind of show you have the turbo model. Now out back you have LED taillights, which are slightly refreshed, dual chrome exhaust tips, which certainly look nice. The wrapper of this Forte5 certainly screams hot hatch. And the fact that Kia offers it with a 6-speed manual or the 7-speed dual clutch that my tester has is certainly something that may catch an enthusiast's eye. But enough about the exterior. Let's take a look at the inside and see some of the changes Kia has made for 2017. My SX tester actually comes with the company's smart key access system with push button start. Here's the older Kia key fob. Not terribly a fan of it. It feels a little bit big, bulky, and kind of cheap in your hands. But nevertheless, because it has that, just keep the key in your pocket or your purse. To lock the door, push this button here. That locks the doors. The mirrors also will fold in if you have it set to that automatic setting. To unlock it, there's no sensor on the back of the handle. You have to touch the button again. That unlocks the door for you. Now, looking at the interior of my tester, you can see these orange accented seats are new for 2017. They only come on the SX trim if you get that premium package, which certainly makes the interior stand out. I don't know if it entirely matches the dark blue with the orange. It's a little bit strange, but it's different. It certainly is a very youthful looking design, so I applaud Kia for definitely doing that. Now, stepping inside the Forte5, you can see it has a pretty nice step-in height. It does feel slightly lower to the ground than the sedan that I drove, so that's something to consider. When you shut the door, it sounds okay. I definitely have heard some more solid sounding doors from some of its competitors, but to start the vehicle up, just put your foot on the brake and then push the button here to fire up the engine. And of course, what you're hearing is the 1.6 liter turbocharged gasoline direct injection engine. It's not a particularly pleasant sounding motor, at least when you're revving it like that. The Elantra Sport that I showed you guys earlier definitely had a better sounding exhaust than this particular one, so that's something to consider. Now you can see, looking at the rest of this interior, Kia did slightly update it for 2017, but you know, this is a little bit of an older design. You can see there's some carbon fiber look trim accenting the dash. The materials here are soft touch with a nice graining, only on this portion really. There's some nice stitching here with some orange accent over the instrument panel hood. Over here is pretty much, you know, hard touch plastic. You kind of expected that. When you look over on the door panels here, it is soft touch, which is nice. Another good graining material. It's nice and padded here where your elbows will rest. The windows are one touch automatic up down for both front windows. That's pretty nice. I also am really liking the fact that there are memory seats in here, 2-person memory seats. That's really kind of still uncommon in the compact class. I mean, the fact that, you know, it's available on this car and not on a, you know, 2018 Camry just really confuses me. You also get a power driver seat, of course, which is nice. That's starting to become the norm here in the compact class. Now, looking at the steering wheel, I'm not terribly a fan of all the black plastic trim, but I like the fact that it's a flat bottom design. The leather itself feels okay. It's got a nice fat rim. There's also some paddle shifters here, which are plastic. They're mounted on the wheel. Nothing terribly special. Looking at the center stack here, you can see it's, you know, the standard 7-inch touchscreen display you get in all the other Kia products. It does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, so that's something that you know, expect to have in a lot of modern cars nowadays. The system itself, the response is good. When you go to the map display, it's honestly, I feel like it's time for Kia to kind of update this map display, which I'm hoping they'll do so in their newer models. It gets the job done. It's just not going to really wow your passengers. You know, when you go to your radio sources here, you have your usual sources here. I always pretty much have it on satellite. You'll have your presets on this side. You'll have your information there. The response is good. It's really easy to use. I like the fact that Kia gives you knobs and buttons here for tuning, for volume. Everything's pretty much well labeled. You get dual zone automatic climate control, which is definitely nice. There's some nice storage down here where you can literally hide your phone, your USB, your aux, and then 2 power outlets are there, and then you can kind of close this lid if you don't want to show it off. Now, this of course controls the 7-speed dual clutch automated manual. This is an optional transmission. I would probably go for the 6-speed manual since I loved it in the Elantra Sport so much. When you put the vehicle into reverse, Kia does give you a backup camera. It's pretty basic though. There's no trajectory. It just has distance markers, no parking sensors, of course. The shifter itself, it's the traditional PRND with a manual mode here. In addition to the paddles, there's also a drive mode here that cycles between normal or sport mode, which will show you in the instrument panel. I love the fact that this car has cooled seats. I think it may actually be the only compact car in the class that has cooled seats, so bravo Kia, that's definitely nice. The cooled seats also work really well. It's like 100 degrees outside, and as soon as you turn them on, you can feel your butt getting cold, which is lovely. I love having cooled seats in a car in this price range. Now, down here, more storage, some cup holders. There's a traditional pull style handbrake, which is nice if you guys don't like the electronic brakes. The console here is sliding and adjustable. You have some storage down there, which isn't terribly large, but it gets the job done. Above you, there is a sunroof, which is nice. No pano roof is available. You'll have to go to the Elantra GT, which is going to be new for 2018 if you want that. But I mean, overall, the interior, while it is pretty nice, it's definitely, you know, getting a little bit older in its design, and it's also missing some driver assistance stuff. My tester has blind spot monitoring with cross traffic alert, but the sedan is available with like automatic emergency braking and lane departure assist. It's not available on the hatch, and don't expect to find adaptive cruise control. It's not available on this car either. You can get it on the platform mate with the newer designed Elantra Limited. So keep that in mind if you guys want, you know, that technology feature. Looking at the rear seat of the Forte 5, you can see the rear seat is pretty class competitive. I like the fact that the floor is almost nearly flat. You have more of that red or orange accents throughout the seats. Now getting back here, you can see it has a pretty, you know, easy step-in height as well. And then when you shut the door, it sounds pretty much like the front. The materials back here are hard touch plastic, so they didn't carry that over from the front seats, but it is nice and padded here where your elbows are going to rest. There are no heated rear seats. I believe the Elantra offers that, so that's something to consider as well. At least Kia did give you some rear seat vents, which is pretty nice. There's only one map pocket on the passenger seat, but there is a nice little armrest right here with some cup holders, and then in hatchback style, the seats fold down 60/40 to give you some added levels of versatility. Because this is a hatch model, it has obviously better cargo space than the sedan that I showed you, and you're looking at around 23 cubic feet of space with the seats up. Now, when you fold the seats, Kia says this car gives you like 56 cubic feet of space, which would make it more than the Honda Civic by like 10, which to me didn't really look that much more, but hey, I mean, that's kind of what they measure by their numbers. I mean, obviously this is practical. The liftover height's a little bit on the higher side, but the floor is nice and flat. When you look underneath here, there's no spare tire. You actually only have a Fix-A-Fly kit, so you may want to talk to your dealer about adding a spare tire to this car if it's available. Not the most pleasant sounding engine, which is funny because I think it sounds pretty good in the Elantra Sport, but this is the upgraded engine because I have the SX trim. It's the 1.6 liter TGDI, so it's turbocharged, it's got the gasoline direct injection, and it makes pretty good numbers, 201 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque going through the front wheels with either a 6-speed manual or a 7-speed dual clutch automated manual that my tester has. Now, fuel economy is a little bit on the crappy side, if I'm going to be honest. It's rated at like 25 city, 30 highway, which is pretty paltry. A Honda Civic hatchback gets like almost 40 miles per gallon. So Kia's got to work on the fuel economy for this particular model. At least it runs on regular gas. This car weighs around just over 3,000 pounds. Let's get it out on the road and see how it all works, shall we? When I tested the Forte S, I was pretty disappointed with the power. This SX with the turbo motor, really like this motor in the Elantra Sport. So I'll be curious to get this out on the road and feel the differences. This particular one doesn't have the transmission that I prefer. I prefer the manual, but let's get out on the road and see how it does. Now, my initial reactions are relatively positive. This is definitely a lot quicker than most of the compact entries in this segment. This 201 horsepower turbo makes it more powerful than the Civic hatchback, and I think it actually makes it the most powerful entry, in the sport compact segment. Even though this car kind of is a tweener, it sits between the sport compact and just a regular compact car. And the one thing that really kind of disappoints me, though, is the dual clutch in this car. I mean, it's a 7-speed dual clutch, and Kia and Hyundai have been working to, improve it over the years, but it's still very laggy. It's very harsh. There are times where I find the transmission confused when I put my foot down, and it feels like it's almost slipping, and then all of a sudden it wakes up and it puts all the power to the ground. Then you'll feel the tires kind of break loose, and it's kind of a little bit annoying. It's difficult to be smooth in this car because the transmission is so harsh at times. It just reminds me of dual clutches from 5 years ago. The handling of the Forte5 also is secure, but it's not as good as the Mazda 3 or the Honda Civic or the Golf. The steering in this car is electric. It's a little bit numb, not as good as the steering that I drove in the Elantra Sport. The ride quality is also something that annoys me about this car. It's very harsh. This car doesn't have the fully independent rear suspension of the Elantra Sport, and it just doesn't handle as well. It really shows when you're driving. Now, that's not to say this car is bad. I mean, look at this. When you turn the steering wheel, the car doesn't really have too much body lean, and it's relatively quick. It just doesn't really inspire much confidence. This doesn't feel like the sportiest offering in the class, but it is better than vehicles like, the Toyota Corolla IM or the old Hyundai Elantra GT. It's just, you can feel that this car is in need of a complete redesign, to go in more with what I drove in the new Elantra Sport, which is a really great driving, sedan, compact sedan that kind of is more of a tweener than this car. But the visibility in here is good, great sight lines, great view out of the front. The blind spot monitoring or cross traffic alert is nice, but as I said before, there's no driver assistance tech available like automatic emergency braking or lane keep assist or adaptive cruise control. Now, this car does not have a limited slip diff, as I said, neither does the Elantra Sport, and it doesn't really need it. I mean, the front tires will break loose, but I don't really feel any torque steer, which is something that I was, preparing myself for. But overall, the Kia Forte5 SX is just a really easy car to drive with some, good looks, some nice features. I love the cooled seats in this car, honestly. I mean, that feature alone would probably, sway me a little bit if I lived in, a hot climate area, to just have the cooled seat function. The paddles in this car also work relatively well. They actually do blip the throttle every time you use them. And it shifts okay. when you are, using the pedals. They just don't feel the best because they're completely plastic and they're mounted on the wheel. So I find myself not really using the paddle shifters during enthusiastic driving. I just put it into its sport mode and let the transmission do to its own, its own work. Now it feels like this car gets to 60 in the mid 7-second range, which is, pretty quick. This would keep up with a Civic Turbo with the CVT, but this would get smoked by a Volkswagen GTI, which is kind of in a class above this car where it's a true, sport compact hot hatch. Now, let's talk a little bit about the fuel economy, because I mentioned earlier this gas mileage is pretty paltry by compact standards, and I've actually been averaging around 27 miles per gallon in mostly highway driving. When I took it out on a 200-mile quick road trip, I got about 29 miles per gallon, which is pretty paltry, honestly. That was the best I could muster up, going like at a steady 75 cruise on the highway. Now, if I would have done that same trip in a Civic, it would have easily gotten 40 miles per gallon or more. So the fuel economy is pretty lackluster. So that's something that Kia needs to work on. Now, let's talk a little bit about the price, because the Forte5 SX, or just the Forte5, I'm sorry, does have the price advantage. It starts at $18,200. That makes it like $1,000 to $1,500 cheaper than everything else in the segment. A Civic hatch is like $19,900 to start, so it's considerably more money for the Civic. Granted, the Civic is a newer platform. It gets way better gas mileage. It has a lot more, features that this car, is lacking because it's an older design. Now, my tester, being the SX model, starts at $23,008. It rolls in the turbo engine, the bigger wheels and tires, the upgraded seats and stuff like that. My tester also has a premium tech package for $3,600 that gives you the xenon headlights, the cooled seats, the sunroof, the upgraded head unit. Those features are going to push this car's price to around $28,300 with the destination charge, which that sounds like a lot of money. It's still a little bit cheaper than a fully loaded Mazda 6 or a Civic Sport Touring hatch, but keep in mind you can get a Volkswagen GTI for like $25,000 if you can go without some of the high-end features that the Autobahn model has. And at that point, I'd probably rather have the GTI, because the fuel economy is pretty similar to what you might get in the GTI for this price range. But with all that said, I think the Forte5 is definitely an easy car to drive on a daily basis, but you can definitely feel its age, and really, unless you can get one for a really great deal, or you love the styling and you love the features and the way this car offers a lot for the money and the warranty, there's really no reason for me why I would choose it. I would probably take it over the Toyota Corolla IM or just a regular Volkswagen Golf. But compared to the Civic, the Mazda 3, and the GTI, it's kind of a little bit of a tough sell for the Forte5 SX until the company completely redesigns this car. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2017 Kia Forte5 SX. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you all in the next video.